Hi everyone! Alternate recaps here. Today, we are going to explain a satirical movie called The Menu. This is a movie you love, retold in an entirely new way. Margot and Tyler waited on the dock, filled with excitement for their island adventure. Margot enjoyed a cigarette while Tyler couldn't help but frown at the nicotine ruining her finely tuned palate. The small boat approaching could only hold a select number of passengers and came with a steep price tag of $1,250 per person. Their island adventure was joined by a memorable group of people, including Lillian Bloom, a food critic whose opinion carried weight, and her husband Ted, who kept her in check. The trio of tech brothers was also present, more focused on bragging about their financial endeavors than anything else. As Margot and Tyler boarded the boat, the captain greeted them with a smile and informed them of the short journey to the Hawthorne restaurant. A movie star stormed onto the boat, upset with his assistant Felicity's elaborate dinner plans. As a snack was offered to all the guests, Tyler whipped out his camera, eager to snap a photo before Margot could even take a bite. The guests aboard the boat and were greeted by a team of eager servers and house staff on the deck. Elsa, the restaurant captain, seemed suspicious of Margot and pulled Tyler aside to ask about her presence. Tyler sheepishly explained that he had recently broken up with his girlfriend and brought Margot instead, which unnerved Elsa, who sensed something was off about the unexpected guest. The guests lounged at the expanse behind the restaurant where Elsa, the restaurant captain, greeted them and explained that they would be a part of a one-of-a-kind culinary experience. She led them on a tour of the island, showing them the elements that went into creating the perfect dining experience. The group saw the smokehouse where the dairy cow meat was aged for 152 days. One of the tech brothers jokingly asked what would happen if it was served on the 153rd day. Elsa seriously responded that the bacteria would seep into the customer's bloodstream, causing unpleasant symptoms and death. They were then shown the bunkhouse where the staff lived and worked 80 hours a week to keep the restaurant running smoothly. From early morning prep work to 4.5-hour-long dinners, the staff at Hawthorne were a dedicated family committed to excellence. When asked if she ever got burned out, Elsa replied that working at Hawthorne was an honor, and the chef held himself to the highest standard. On their way to the restaurant, Tyler asked about the mysterious cottage on the hill. Elsa explained that it was where the chef lived and even the staff wasn't allowed inside. When they entered the restaurant, they were greeted by a sad old woman nursing a drink at a table in the back and Anne and Richard, who were already seated. The open kitchen behind the tables was bustling with staff, and Elsa reminded everyone not to photograph the dishes as the chef believed that part of their beauty was their ephemeral nature. Tyler dragged Margot to talk to the sous chef in the kitchen, who was preparing little gels. Tyler boasted about his foodie knowledge and asked if the dish was made with a Paco jet, but the sous chef seemed unimpressed. He even seemed to know Tyler by name and mentioned that all the staff was well informed about the guests. Margot pointed out that, while the sous chef knew Tyler's name, Tyler had never asked for his. The guests took their seats as Chef Slowik appeared in the kitchen, his brooding demeanor setting the tone for the meal. He tasted the dish and gave his approval, and all the servers began to serve the food. Tyler whipped out his camera and snapped a photo, despite Margot's reminder that it was forbidden. They both tried the food with Tyler raving about it, but Margot was less impressed. Margot watched the boat sail away as Chef Slowik introduced himself and told the group that over the next few hours, they would be ingesting a variety of fats, salts, sugars, proteins, bacteria, fungi, plants, and animals at a brisk pace. However, he asked them to do him a favor and not eat instead. He suggested that they taste, savor, and relish each bite. The first course, called The Island, was presented to the group. The plate was filled with various plants from the island, arranged on rocks from the shore and covered in barely frozen seawater. Tyler pointed out that these were the same clams they had seen a man fishing for earlier, and Chef Slowik's ears perked up at the comment. However, he reassured Tyler that it was all right and that the people on the island were not important in the grand scheme of things. The island and its nutrients existed in their most perfect state without being gathered, manipulated, or digested by humans. In the end, the events in the room were meaningless compared to the timeless, eternal cycles of nature. While Tyler was moved to tears by the beauty of the first course, Margot remained skeptical and refused to eat any of it. The rest of the room seemed to revel in the culinary experience, with food critic Lillian Bloom declaring it the most elastic she had ever tasted. Her husband agreed, remarking that they were essentially eating the ocean. The movie star required guidance from his assistant on how to approach the meal, while the three Tech brothers loudly discussed tech and criticized the plate, saying it was a little fancy and that they had shellfish just as good at Kashiba. Regardless, they were excited to say they had been there, buying into the experience. As the guests tasted the first course, Elsa watched with contempt, while chefs stared intently at Margot. The next course was served with bread service, but Chef Slowik had a different perspective on the traditional accompaniment. He gave a speech about how bread has existed for 12,000 years and is often associated with the poor, consisting of just flour and water. He pointed out that even today, grain represents 65% of all agriculture, while fruits and vegetables make up just 6%. He declared that, as the group gathered was not the common man, they would not be receiving any bread that evening. Instead, everyone was given shale plates with only the condiments. Many guests were upset about the lack of bread, which was made from a heritage wheat called red fife. The movie star tried the creams while Lillian Bloom brushed off the chef's decision, but criticized the emulsion on one of the sauces. Lillian said the chef often wove allegories into his food and it was hard to guess the theme of the entire meal until the final course. Tyler takes another picture of the food, which confuses Margot. He tells her how much he loves food and sees it as a form of art. Lillian brags about making her own bread and yeast at her table. Elsa approaches with a broken emulsion that Lillian had complained about, a gift from Chef Slowik. The Tech brothers then ask Elsa for bread, as Hawthorne is known for it, but she denies their request and reminds them they work for Doug Verrick. Offended, the Tech brothers say wow, as Elsa whispers to one of them,
"You will eat less than you desire and more than you deserve."
Margot, recognized by Richard, is told by Anne that she resembles their daughter. The chef approaches Margot and inquires about her lack of eating, to which Margot replies that she doesn't want to eat too much. The chef insists that the portions are specifically measured to prevent that, and urges her to eat, stating that the menu only makes sense if she does. Margot reminds the chef that he previously told them not to eat, but to taste instead. Despite the chef's request and the deferential treatment of him by others, Margot asserts her independence and decides to eat what she wants, when she wants. The chef silently smiles and exits the scene. The old woman, previously seen nursing a glass of wine alone, is brought back into the narrative as the chef announces the next course. Memory, and shares a harrowing childhood story of growing up with alcoholic parents. He recalls a violent altercation between his mother and father, and how, at just 7 years old, he had to protect his mom by stabbing his dad in the thigh with kitchen scissors. The chef regretfully admits that he wishes he had aimed for the throat instead. A dish of chicken thighs with pineapple salsa and tortillas, called Memory, is served to the group. Lillian finds that her tortillas contain images of restaurants she had given bad reviews to, while the Tech Bros' tortillas hold documents exposing them for committing fraud. When confronted, Elsa refuses to reveal how she obtained the documents and simply states that they are just tortillas. The Tech brothers threaten to shut down the restaurant, but Elsa remains calm and reassures them it won't be necessary. The movie star's tortillas feature posters of a cheesy film he did for the money, and then sees pictures of herself and Richard, including one with a bandage on his head after a melanoma removal and another with him on a date with a young female escort, which he insists was photoshopped. At Tyler's table, the tortillas reveal pictures of him trying to sneakily photograph his food. He becomes concerned that the chef is angry with him and considers apologizing. Margot declares that they should send the dish back, but Tyler snaps at her, reminding her that they should be grateful to have even been allowed in the restaurant. Despite Margot being offended by his rude behavior, Tyler enthusiastically uses a tortilla to make a taco and exclaims how delicious it is. Margot stands up to leave and is stopped by Elsa, who asks if she needs assistance. Margot explains that she is searching for the ladies' room and Elsa points her in the right direction. Margot takes a smoke break on top of a toilet in the ladies' room, looking out at angel wings being prepared on the lawn. The chef comes in and questions her presence on the island, hinting that she was not meant to be there. Two servers unroll a tarp covered in sea fennel, edible flowers, and baskets, resembling a Japanese mini Murasudo-style theater. The chef then introduces his sous chef, Jeremy, who has created the dish, the mess. Jeremy has dedicated his life to trying to please the chef, customers, and critics, sacrificing his personal life and well-being in the process. Despite his efforts, he has never reached greatness and is unhappy with his life. When asked by the chef if he likes his life, Jeremy responds with a tearful "No." The chef then reveals the fourth course, sous chef Jeremy's mess, and Jeremy takes his own life with a pistol. Chaos ensues as people try to flee and others try to find the phone, leading to a power struggle. Richard, desperate to leave, threatens to call in a helicopter, but Elsa points out the lack of phone service on the island. When he tries to push past the servers, and advises him to comply with their demands, but Elsa challenges his authority, asking which hand he plans on using to fight back. When he doesn't answer, she orders the servers to amputate his left ring finger as a warning to others. Elsa declares that anyone who tries to leave will also lose a body part. The movie star is furious with his assistant for bringing him to the island, while Lillian and her husband try to convince themselves that the events unfolding are just a stunt or performance art. Elsa invites Margot to join the chef in the kitchen. Tyler asks if he can come along, but is denied. In the kitchen, the chef confronts Margot about ruining his menu and asks why she's there. He senses that she doesn't belong and asks her to choose between us or them. Margot asks if answering will allow her to live, to which the chef responds that they will all die that night. He gives Margot a kitchen timer and gives her 15 minutes to decide. The chef at the restaurant tells Margot and Tyler that they won't be leaving alive that night. The chef then explains that some of the customers have been chosen because of their actions or lack thereof. He mentions that Lillian Bloom's bad reviews have hurt the careers of many chefs and a container of broken emulsion is brought out for her. He calls out Richard and for visiting the restaurant 11 times, but not being able to remember what they ate on their last visit, and whispers cod, but the chef angrily corrects her, saying it was actually rare halibut. He wonders why they keep coming to the restaurant, assuming it's because they feel entitled due to their wealth. The Tech brothers mention that Doug Vurick owns the restaurant, and the chef confirms that Doug also owns the island and therefore owns him. However, the chef currently owns Doug. Doug is seen through a window, wearing angel wings and being held up by a rope over the sea with his hands tied behind him. The chef explains that Doug questioned his menu and requested substitutions, and they used him to get information from the Tech boys' tortillas. Doug is then dropped into the sea to drown. Margot's timer goes off, and she is taken back to the chef's office. She admits to being an escort hired by Tyler, and also mentions knowing Richard, recalling a time when he hired her to dress up as his daughter and perform sexual acts while pretending to be her. The chef thinks Margot should join the staff because they have been oppressed, ignored, and deprived. The group is taken outside for their next course, and the chef introduces his sous chef Catherine, who will present the dish. Catherine reveals that the chef tried to sexually assault her 2 years ago, and when she refused, he tried again. He didn't fire her but refused to acknowledge her or speak to her directly for 8 months, during which male cooks were promoted above her. Catherine believes she deserves to be treated as superior, and is better than all the male sous chefs and even the chef himself. However, as a woman in the culinary industry, she has faced harassment, objectification, and lower pay in order to be humiliated. The next course is called humiliation, and Catherine will show the group what true humiliation looks like. Catherine takes a small paring knife and stabs it into the chef's thigh, but they then embrace. The group is informed that the men will be hunted and given a 45-second head start to hide. Some of them immediately run while others follow shortly after. At the 45-second mark, all the male servers flee into the woods, attempting to capture them. As the hunt continues, the women are led back into the restaurant and speaks with Margot, who was hired for sexual favors by Anne's husband. When the men are located, they are beaten and brought back inside. Ted, the last man to be found, he had been hiding in the barn instead of running through the woods, is given an extra dish as a reward. The chef then announces that they need to address an unresolved matter before continuing the planned menu. He addresses Tyler, who has been sending him letters expressing his love for food and interest in Hawthorne. Tyler explains that he is trying to dine at the world's best restaurants. The chef reveals that Tyler wasn't surprised by the events of the night because he was told in advance that everyone would die. The chef points out that Tyler claimed to be a skilled cook at home and invites him to prepare the next meal. Tyler goes back into the kitchen to create his own dish on the timer. He clumsily chops leeks and shallots, which the chef mockingly comments on. Tyler adds lamb and other ingredients such as carrots, capers, and more to the dish. The chef mockingly asks if he would like to use the Paco jet, a machine Tyler had previously boasted about being familiar with. Tyler plates the dish, and the chef pretends to enjoy it before revealing its poor quality. Tyler is humiliated and taken to the chef's office to be dealt with. The chef informs the group that there is one savory course left on the menu and they must prepare for dessert. The chef tells Margot that she will go to the smokehouse to retrieve the barrel. Elsa suggests that a staff member should go instead, but the chef insists on Margot going to prove which side she stands on and whether or not she wants to die with them or the staff. Margot is given the key to the smokehouse. On her way out, she sees Tyler, hanging by a noose, dead in the chef's office. Margot heads out to the lawn and goes to the smokehouse. She quickly locates the barrel, but grabs a scaling knife off the wall before proceeding. Through the window, she sees the chef's cottage. The movie star wonders why he was chosen as a guest when everyone else is being punished. The chef explains that he watched his movie on his day off and didn't enjoy it. His assistant asks why she is being punished, and the chef inquires about where she went to college. When she replies, Brown, he asks if she has student loans, and upon receiving a no response, declares the matter closed. Margot enters the chef's cottage and discovers it is a replica of the restaurant kitchen with a locked silver door. Elsa appears in the cottage and tells Margot that her job is to worry about the customers while the chef focuses on the menu and Margot is making her job difficult. They fight around the cottage and Margot uses the knife she took earlier to kill Elsa. Elsa tries to explain that she didn't neglect to move the barrel. The chef never requested it. Margot takes the key from Elsa and enters a secret room filled with stacks of cookbooks and photos of the chef throughout his career, ending with a newspaper picture of him flipping burgers at a local restaurant, where he appears happier. Margot notices a radio on the shelf and calls for the Coast Guard. When she goes back into the cottage, the chef asks if she likes his home. Margot asks him why, if he is fed up with serving his art to rich people, he doesn't work in a soup kitchen or monastery. The chef tells her that he is a monster, but everything he has done that night is pure. He demonstrates his chef's hands by extinguishing a flame on Margot's candle with his hand. He quotes Martin Luther King, saying, "Freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed." A small boat arrives and the Coast Guard makes his way to the restaurant. The chef admires Margot for finding the radio and orders the dining room to be cleared. The staff works to conceal all that has happened that night and to clean everyone's faces to hide their injuries. The chef tells the group that the Coast Guard cannot help them and it would be risky to involve him, as it would result in the death of an innocent man. The Coast Guard tells the chef that he has heard about a disturbance, but the chef denies this and nobody in the room speaks up. He asks if anyone called in a distress signal on the shortwave, but Margot does not speak up. He then recognizes the movie star and says he is a fan. The chef offers the movie star an autograph, which he writes on a piece of paper for the Coast Guard. The officer turns to leave, but then turns back around and points his gun at the chef. The room begs for help. The Coast Guard points his gun at Margot, specifically at the candle on her table that the chef had extinguished. However, the gun is actually a lighter, which he uses to light the candle. The chef reveals that he is one of them and then tells Margot that she is now an eater, a taker, and an animal like everyone else. The group is being served their final course, chocolate, which is poured on the floor. Margot doesn't like the food and wants to send it back. The chef asks her what she doesn't like about it, and she tells him that it lacks joy and love. He defends himself and says that love is the most important ingredient in his food. Margot also says that the hot dishes were cold and there was no personality or emotion in the food. She tells the chef that his purpose as a chef is to serve people food that they will enjoy, and he has failed. The chef asks how hungry Margot is, and she says she's starving. He asks her what she wants, and she says a cheeseburger. The chef agrees to make Margot a burger and promises it will be the best she's ever had. He presents it to Margot, who takes a bite and agrees that it's great, but can't finish it all. She asks for a to-go bag and leaves $10 on the table before leaving. She is given a gift bag with a menu from that night as a memento. Dessert is served after everyone has received and paid their bill. Lillian charges her bill to the magazine she writes for, and Richard uses his Amex. The movie star's assistant admits to stealing money from him, and they both apologize. The final dessert course is a twist on s'mores, which the chef describes as a boring dessert made of cheap chocolate, marshmallow, and graham crackers that Americans like because it is set on fire. Marshmallow coats are placed on each guest, and the floor is covered in chocolate sauce and graham cracker crumbs. The room is then lit on fire. After some difficulty, Margot is finally able to start the Coast Guard's boat and rides back to the dock she had left earlier. Inside Hawthorne, the restaurant is in flames and everyone is dying. On the dock, Margot opens the to-go bag and starts eating the cheeseburger. She then pulls out a replica of the menu from that night, which she uses to wipe her face. The restaurant explodes in flames on the island in the distance. Thanks for watching. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Leave a comment if you have any suggestions for future videos or just to say hi. Thanks for the support. Catch you in the next one.